Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you are joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show and let them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, CastBox, Amazon Music, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have a real special episode for you today. Loree Bischoff is here. Loree is going to be sharing some really fantastic wisdom from her Common Sense Happiness book. She'll also be telling us about her teen life coaching program that can be found at tlccourse.com. Are you looking for a new book to add to your family library? Well, I have great news for you. Lynn Podrad, the award-winning author of Listen to Me, How My Down Syndrome Brother Saved My Life, has once again shared with us her family and a brand new book. It's called My Sister Wants an Elephant. Randy's sister wants a what? And his mom isn't flat out saying no? My Sister Wants an Elephant is a true story of two siblings who team up together to convince their mother to let them own a couple of wild animals as pets, and a mom who just might be persuaded. This book is full of humor and fun. It's a good lesson in not giving up on your dreams, no matter how truly wild they may be. Get your copy today. My Sister Wants an Elephant by Lynn Podrad. Join us right now from Cody in the great state of Wyoming. Our guest is here today to help us become happier people and better parents and help our kids be happy too. Please welcome to the show, Loree Bischoff. Hey, Loree, how are you?
Jed, I am doing great. It's really a pleasure to be here with you, and I'm so thankful that you wanted to talk to me on your show.
Absolutely. Loree is the author of Common Sense Happiness, and we've talked a lot here on the podcast about how important it is and what a wonderful gift it is if we can teach our kids to live gratefully and just appreciate everything they have. And there have been so many different studies that show that kids who live gratefully are happier. And I think being happier and being healthier, I think, is a wonderful thing. So I'd love for you to give us a little idea of what we discover if we dive into Common Sense Happiness.
Well, you can really consider this book to be almost like a little beginner's manual for people that have gotten to a point in their life where they're just thinking, you know what, I feel like I need some personal development. I feel like I'm ready to maybe inspect my beliefs and see what it is that has me feeling perhaps a little bit stuck. Or, some people are just on a constant quest for growth. And so this is a really great way to start going down that road. There's five sort of fundamental principles, I call them, and each one invites you to think about your life in a different way, and there's a nice little synopsis at the end of each chapter. It's a quick and easy read, so that people don't get too overwhelmed by too many. It's very simple. Life is not as complicated as we like to make it. Mm-hmm. Our circumstances, the people in our lives, the choices that we've made, none of it is really that complicated. It's pretty simple if you just stick with the basics. And some of those basics are like, first of all, you really need to make a firm decision. Everything starts with a decision, right? You got to make a decision that this is really what I want. I'm not content where I'm at, and I am going to choose to be in a better place. So it's kind of like to be or not to be. And so the first principle is really about just making that initial decision. Perhaps you've gotten to a point where you just don't want to, you're no longer willing to tolerate where you're at, and you are ready for a shift. So the first one really talks about how to start making those decisions and those shifts and why. So it's helping you understand that your happiness is your responsibility. It is not your spouse's. It is not your employer. It is not, your mommy and daddy. It's nobody else's job to make you happy. That is your job. And a lot of people like to farm that out and, to other people or experiences or material things. But none of those things, are really, truly responsible. So once you get that, now you can do something about it, because the ball's in your court, right? The next principle would be about what I like to call hold your power. And that's about learning the art of managing your emotions. Because if you do not understand what generates your emotions and how to manage them, then they will manage you. And so will other people, because other people know how to push your buttons. They know how to make you react. And so that's another one of those things where people like to blame other people for the way they feel. And that actually is, it's a false belief that other people can make you feel really a certain way. That's all you. It's all what you decide to agree with, right? You can agree with other people or you can disagree, which means now I'm back to managing myself the way I feel, right? So holding your power, that's it. It's the person that has learned to master their emotions has the truest sense of freedom, because you're not at the mercy of anybody else's button pushing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The third principle is, I call make shift happen. So again, we talk about, hey, the only person that can do that really is you. So that's going to require that you start to really analyze not only your intention, what is it you intend to do? How is it you intend to feel? What are your intentions? And then aligning them with what your attention is on. So there's often a disconnect there. People say, well, I intend to do this. I want to have this experience. I intend to create this or develop that. There's lots of great intentions, but then the attention, the focus is not on those things. It's all on other things that aren't actually moving you in the direction of those intentions, right? So there's it's a very, it's not subtle. That's a big, chasm between two major things in a person's life. So I think, making shift happen means aligning your intentions with your attention, what you're focusing on, what you're devoting your resources to, your time, your mental focus, your energy, right? And then, and obviously gratitude is always a big part of that. Like you mentioned at the top of the show, gratitude is so huge, because gratitude, things tend to get watered down when they're trendy. And gratitude has become, almost a buzzword and a trendy thing. But, one of the reasons for that is because it works. And, but when people start to hear it too much, it starts to sort of lose its impact. But it really is true. When you can shift your mindset into a mindset of gratitude, it helps you stay emotionally fit, which, as we just talked about, is really important. And it helps align you with sort of the intention of life, which is always for you, not against you. And it helps you train your mind to focus on what is right and what is good in your life. Because there's always something going on that's right. There's always something going on that's good. There's always something in your life that you can be thankful for. But most people get into the mindset of focusing on what they don't have, what's not going right, they're frustrated, what's missing. You get into that habit of what's not right, which is the opposite. And so you start to miss out on the things that are going well or right. And also, if you're a student of faith or a student of energy, if you're a student of quantum physics, it's all kind of different words for fundamentally the same thing, which is, if you're in a mindset of lack and want and woe is me, you tend to generate more of what you're putting out into the world. Mm-hmm. So if that's what you're putting out all day, every day, then that's what you're creating. Mm-hmm. And when you shift into a mindset of gratitude, now you're focusing on what's good, what's right, what you do have, what you can be thankful for. And then we have a tendency not only to be a lot more at peace with ourselves, but we're more in harmony with the laws of life. And we have a tendency then to draw more of those good things to us. Yeah. And so that's important. There's two more principles. One is called change your chain, which is essentially, what have I changed myself to, chained myself to, tethered myself to, that is perhaps an obstacle that's holding me back? What is something that I keep, doing? Or sometimes it's a person in your life, or it's a job, or it's just a set of false beliefs, but something you've attached yourself to that's keeping you in this stuck place. So it's time to maybe take some personal inventory. Mm-hmm. Investigate your beliefs, determine your priorities, looking at, who you've surrounded yourself with. And if you find that, I've actually tethered myself to this set of circumstances or this person or this group, whatever, and it's really keeping me from moving in a direction I want to move. So sometimes you got to let some things go. Mm-hmm. And that's what it means. Unchain yourself. You have the power to do that. You make a choice. And then the last one, which is one of my favorites, is called romance your life. And in a nutshell, that is like, treat your life like someone you're dating and you are really trying to impress. Because I think, so many people treat their car better than they treat themselves. They take better care of their pets than themselves, the garden, the house, mm-hmm. other people. And they're like way on the back burner. And then they wonder why, they're not fulfilled. Mm-hmm. Well, we have a tendency, it's very easy for us to neglect ourselves or disrespect ourselves through, where our focus is or self-sabotaging behavior. So I think, when someone's really feeling unfulfilled, or they're like, why, I just can't seem to find that sense of happiness I'm looking for. Well, look at the way you treat yourself and you treat your time on this earth. It's limited. Right. You don't know how much there is. So maybe you should treat yourself better than you treat your car or your dog or your garden or your house, and see how things shift.
Amen. Yeah. As you were speaking, I'm thinking that this is common sense happiness would be a great kind of companion to have as a parent. And as you're reading with your kids, and as, your kids are picking one book and then you pick a book, I think it would be wonderful just to kind of go through that and I'm going to pick a book that really is going to help us open up a conversation about being grateful, about living gratefully, about unchaining myself from things that are holding me down. In addition to helping yourself and kind of seeing where you are. A lot of these things are especially controlling your emotions. A big thing in children's literature these days and in education is the social emotional learning, helping our mm-hmm. kids identify what their emotions are. Well, it's going to be really hard for you as a parent to help your kid do that when you ain't doing it yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true. And you're right. This is a great companion piece. You could literally sit down and go through one principle at a time with your teenager or whatever, and talk about things, which opens up lines of communication. It opens up, just opportunity to deepen the relationship, to build trust in the relationship. And then you can literally go online to my website, download a worksheet that's related to that particular principle, and you can each do it, your own worksheet. You can do it together. So it creates a lot of opportunity to connect at a deeper level with your teen and teach them these principles that are not really taught in school.
Right.
Nothing really in school is deeply about the student. It's all about other things, right? It's about memorizing other stuff that most kids are typically not that interested in. Mm-hmm. So this is about and the course that I created that I think we'll talk about in a minute is all about the kid. It's about the teenager. It's about them. And that is, that's very appealing. Everybody is really, everyone likes it when somebody shows interest and curiosity in them personally. We all like kind of light up a little when somebody is curious about what we're up to and what we think and feel. And teenagers aren't any different.
Oh, amen. My kids are now adults, but I have a niece that I'm incredibly close to who just ended being a teenager. And we've also hosted international kids in our home when they come here to Boston to study. And those have all been high school kids. And I've developed close relationships with all of them because I would sit down and ask them, what are you into? What's your home like? And we would go and talk for hours at a time. And it really is true. When you show an interest in your kid, especially, they're going to dig that. They might, the first time you try it, they might just go, yeah, leave me alone. I want to watch TV. I want to get on my device.
Right.
Right. But that's why we encourage families to start this. I always say to young parents, like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I have to have that talk about drugs or alcohol or sex. And when should I start talking about it? And I'm like, now. You're not going to talk about sex with your 3-year-old, but you're going to start a conversation that's going to make it easier to talk about those things when they're teens. And it sounds like your coaching class is an additional aid to help open those lines of communication.
Yeah, absolutely. When all of the big shift happened in 2020 here, it caused a lot of disruptions in many ways for many people, and obviously for the kids of all grade levels, that was a major disruption. But it pulled back the curtain. And a lot of people could see what was being taught, what wasn't being taught, and they could see the, effects. There was just a lot of, displeasure, I would say. And then statistics are coming out about, the alarming, escalating rates of negative things going on with teenagers in particular, whether it's depression or anxiety, drug abuse, self-harm, suicide. I mean, all of these terrible things that all of a sudden are like just escalating it at rapid pace, and we're like, what is going on with these kids? And we can't let this happen. And so for me, as a coach for 16 years, I'm alarmed at these statistics, and I don't even, my kids are grown and young and they're adults now, so I don't even have teenagers. But, it's like I tell people, even if you don't have teenagers, because either you don't have kids or they're like mine, they're grown, they're adults, or maybe you have, toddlers or young ones and you're not thinking about that yet. But the thing is, those teenagers of today are the culture of tomorrow. They will be making decisions. They are consumers. They will be policymakers, perhaps, and politicians. And so we should all be concerned about the state of affairs and the state of their mental health and, the state of their self-esteem and self-worth and what they think is possible for them in the future. Because it's going to affect everybody. It's in some way, shape, or form. So I along with a colleague, we created a life coaching course for teenagers that are addressing a lot of these things that are not addressed in schools or a typical curriculum. Even if you're a homeschooling parent and you have more control over what you're teaching, what curriculums you're using for your teen, but a lot of homeschooling parents even are able to just use their school or another school's standard curriculum. So they're still kind of looking at some of the same basic information. And so there's this kind of gap between what they actually need, what teenagers need to feel like really having an empowered mindset, to feel like they have how do I develop a purpose-driven mindset? How do I make sure that the beliefs that I believe are good for me, that are going to help me, and that aren't going to sabotage me? So teens, like everyone, like every person on the planet, we all, if we want to have our version of what constitutes a successful, fulfilling life, we all need to have empowering beliefs. We need to have a positive, purpose-driven mindset, and we need to have healthy habits to support all of that. Those things are not taught in high school curriculums. They're not really taught in any kind of formal education, and yet they are foundational skills that we all need to have the best shot at creating what we would consider the most fulfilling life. Yeah. So that's what this course does, because even you mentioned it earlier, the social emotional learning that they're trying to incorporate into some of these schools, but really that doesn't really go deep enough. It is allowing for the expression of emotion. How do I express my emotions, and how do I express understanding and empathy and express myself? But it actually doesn't teach where emotions come from, how they're generated, your control of them, and how you make them work for you instead of against you. It's a little more about the freedom of expression, which is just a tiny part of it. But really, everyone, we have a lot of people going around expressing a lot of emotions right now. And they're not always based on logic, rationale, maybe what I would call a accurate meaning of things. So that's when we are talking about emotional fitness in the teen life coaching course, that's what we're talking about, where the emotions come from, the effects and the role of thoughts and emotions, and understanding an emotional scale from positive to negative, all the emotions that it's, if you think of it like a ladder, and every, positive to neutral to low emotions. Where are you on that scale? How do you move up the scale? How do you move up the ladder? So it's about taking ownership and learning how to master that. Otherwise, like I said earlier, you're just kind of at the mercy of them, and you think it's outside of you, but that's backwards.
Yeah. Do you think, as you were speaking, I was reminded of a media literacy course that I took when I remember my daughter was in the 8th grade, so probably 10, 15 years ago. And at that time, the belief was that kids and adults, but especially kids, are exposed to 3,000 media messages a day. So 3,000 messages from somebody that's trying to get them to buy something, to believe in a certain way, to do certain things. I have to believe that number has exploded. And, kids are probably being exposed to 30 or 40,000 media messages today, telling them they're not good enough. They're not good enough unless they have this type of shoe or this type of car, and certainly there's lots of messages for them to believe in a certain way politically, and you can only believe and from this perspective, and you have to align with everything that this tribe says you have to align with. There's no back and forth. You can't choose one from column A and one from column B. Do you think that is really adding a lot and causing a lot of the anxiety and the depression and all the other things that we're so concerned about?
Yeah, I think it's all of the above for sure. Ever since the invention of television, and it's only gotten more, you take television and then you've got radio and then you've got television and then you've got the internet and then you've got it all in the palm of your hand, mm-hmm. right? So now what's happened is because of radio and television, then we have what's been created as the big advertising and marketing. Now, anybody that's selling a product or service has a line to masses of people listening and watching, mm-hmm. and right? And so we've all been brought up like that because it's been in our lives for, since we were born, mm-hmm. and it's only intensified. And so now you have young, kids at the youngest of ages with this coming at them from a device that's in their pocket all day, every day. And it has an even greater impact because you're right that, one of the biggest, I guess you could say, commodities that everybody that's selling a product or service or ideology wants is attention, your attention, the attention of every single brain of every single human out there, mm-hmm. right? So your attention is highly, highly valuable. And it's a lot easier. It's very easy to capture the attention and manipulate what that person, thinks that they need. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to do that the younger you are because you don't have enough life experience to discern what's right and good for you, right. and what's not, what's trying to use you. So for sure, I think we're trained to be voracious consumers in this country, yep. for sure. Mm-hmm. And so if you don't understand that and you start to believe, which the advertising and marketing industry will have you believe, and the political arena, everybody that wants something from you is going to be training you in every way that they can to have you believe that you need that belief, that group, that ideology, that, product or that service in order to be okay and to be approved of and to have what you've been told you actually need, mm-hmm. in order to, be happy.
Yeah. You just used a word that was kind of terrifying to me. You said that the political parties, the manufacturers, the advertisers, they're training us, mm-hmm. as opposed to the way I always thought, they're trying to convince me, they're trying to sell me. But the idea that this corporation, this entity is training me, mm-hmm. that sends shivers down my spine. And the idea that my kids are being trained in a way that doesn't line up with my values,
right?
That's a concern.
It should be a concern. It should be alarming. It should be a big concern. Look at, it's so subtle sometimes. So look at many of the pharmaceutical commercials that are on TV. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you see, this drug is going to make this adult so happy that they're literally singing and dancing in the streets, right? Or they're dancing and singing while they're mowing the lawn. Life is so good now because I take this pill. And then, or the other scenario is it's the grandparents and now they're taking this pill for their whatever. And they're sitting with the grandchildren and they're being able to now to interact and play with their grandchildren because they, feel so much better. So now what that is you're actually training the kids that are seeing this commercial to go, oh, that's how it is. Oh, that's normal. Oh, I just need to go to my doctor and get that pill. And, this isn't a conscious thing in their awareness, but this is what they're seeing and being trained to believe is normal and acceptable and the way things are. If you want this result, this is the path, right? So, it's an absolute training, and it also starts. So not only is it coming from, every media, whether it's TV or social media, in some way, shape, or form, but it also that training starts the minute they step foot in school, because in school you need to learn how to fall in line and follow the rules and do not be a disruptor and behave like everyone else. You learn conformity. You learn to ask permission for everything. You are not necessarily taught to be, an outlier, a disruptor, a leader, questioning, curious about stuff. No. We don't want that. We need, right. you need to do this when I tell you you're going to do it. Yeah. And then stop when I tell you you're going to stop. Even if you are interested in continuing, you don't get to. You got to stop now. You hear that bell. Now you're done. Now you move on to the next subject that you may or may not be interested in. And you will try to learn that as we, funnel information at you, and you need to remember it, and then you need to stop at the next bell and go on to the next thing. It's just this sort of rote conformity system. And, there's always the few that go rogue, God bless them, and go on to, live life they want to live life. But for the most part, that system overall is very conducive to training the minds in the same way that marketing and advertising does. Yeah. It's training you to go accept what is being told to you that you need to learn or that you need to own or that you need to ingest or that you, right, in order to be approved of, to be okay, to, to feel good about yourself. You need all these things. And so that's I think a very dangerous situation to have going on for a person's entire life, starting at age, 4.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we've talked a lot about that. And the kids who don't fall in line are given pills. And,
exactly.
And so we've talked a lot about that, talked a lot about, and had some great physicians and psychologists on encouraging parents to, the pill is the last resort. Let's adapt the classroom maybe to fit the needs of the child as opposed to trying to make the child fit in the straight line and be a cog in this wheel. Your life teen coaching, your teen life coaching, is this something, a program that a parent can pick up and do with their kids, or is this something where you're working directly with somebody's kid?
Yeah, so it's, I can certainly work with, if a parent desires to hire someone like myself or my colleague as a coach for their kid, clearly I can do that just like I would with my adult clientele. But in order to reach the masses, which is really what the goal is, we've made the course so that it's a online, self-paced, accessible course to anyone that wants to get it for their teenager. They can go to my website, they can click on it, and then they can buy the course, and they can have their teen go through it at their own pace.
Right.
And, it's like the next best thing to having a coach in their corner, so to speak. I mean, I feel like, look, anyone that wants to excel at whatever they're interested in. Maybe you're an actor, you want to be the best actor. You're a singer. You're a professional athlete. You're an entrepreneur or a CEO. You hire a business coach. They hire coaches. Mm-hmm. Everybody hires a coach, no matter what you want to do. In life, if you want to excel and become the best or learn how to be better at whatever it is you're interested in or you're doing, right? You hire a coach. Yeah. And so this is kind of like the next best thing. It's akin to having a coach in your corner if you're a teenager, because not everybody has the resources to hire a private coach for themselves, let alone their teenager. Yeah. But this is the next best thing. So you've got all of the same fundamental coaching methodologies that we work with adult clients on, geared toward the high school age mind and that stage of life, right? So that way they can go on, they can go at their own pace, they can read through the course, and if they're not readers or strong readers or they resist reading, then they can click on the video and there's me reading it to you. So they can just listen and watch. And then they can go and I'll tell them to pause now and do the exercise related to what we just talked about. They do this little, related exercise that gets them thinking, and it's all about them. So there's no wrong answers. It's not a graded test where you're going to pass or fail, because it's all about them.
Right.
So there is no wrong answer. There's just you. And it's just, leading you into developing more self-confidence. How do you develop more self-esteem? How do you deal with bullying? How do you become the best version of you? Maybe you've never even heard that phrase before, but wow, that's really interesting. How do I improve the relationship I have with myself? Because you actually have a relationship with yourself, even if you don't know it. Now you're going to know it and understand it and learn, kind of like that Romance Your Life mm-hmm. principle in my book. Mm-hmm. That's about the relationship you have with yourself, right? Then we're going to talk about motivation and gaining clarity on what you're interested in and what kind of calls to you, and how do you start to move toward that? How do you generate momentum? How do you discover why is this interesting to me? Mm-hmm. Why might I want to move in this direction or go after this particular thing that really appeals to me at this stage of my life? Visioning, the power of visioning what you want. Where are you going? Mm-hmm. Everything is, as you know, Jed, everything that you are thinking about and focusing on intently and envisioning, that you're likely to go toward those things. That's mm-hmm. how life works. And if you don't know that, you're sort of just tripping along by default mm-hmm. in reaction mode. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So they're going to learn, those things, emotional fitness, which we've already talked about, just some fundamental healthy habits that are very basic. Mindset is a huge one. Owning your choices, personal responsibility, the secret power of I am. Mm-hmm. Where everything you say following I am, you're making a declaration. And you're creating things with those really powerful words. You know how many people don't have a clue about that? Right. They go around saying I am, and then they follow it up with things like I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm stressed, I'm annoyed, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to fill in the blank, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. So just planting these really good seeds, it's like we're seeding the garden of their minds, of their brains. And those things, even though they may not all start to produce right now, but once the seeds are planted, they're there. Yeah. And they'll come back to them. They'll remember them. They'll grab onto what they're ready for right now. And then as they grow and evolve, other things will start to, sprout up. And they'll go, oh, that's right. I I did learn about that in that course, and now I get it.
Right.
So the seeds that are being planted are really good. And the biggest thing I think is it kind of culminates. It's a 7-module course, and the last one we go into your value system. Mm-hmm. Why is that important? How do you build that? Moral codes, character traits. It's really about establishing your rules for living. And you create a personal declaration, a personal constitution. And so now you have some sort of framework to move forward in, to help you make decisions, especially when there's some things you're faced with that could be like really detrimental. Mm-hmm. If you do this, if you go along with that, there's going to be a likely, series of consequences. Mm-hmm. And that's easy to do when you don't have an intact value system, when you don't know what your values even are, because you've never really had to sit down and think deeply about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love this. It makes perfect sense to me. I think I'm really thankful as I reflect back. I think me and my beautiful wife did a lot of this with our kids. A lot of it was because it was, in terms of values, our faith in shared, and talked about it with our kids. And, there are a lot of other, you were talking about choices and consequences. And I think most people, the minute they hear that, you might make a choice that's bad and leads to bad consequences, they think, drugs, unwanted pregnancy. But our kids are actually being pressured to make choices about other things that are just as consequential as, like, what are you going to do in college? What are you going to enter college with an intention to learn something that can be valued and bring value to your life after college? Or are you just going because everybody else is going?
Right.
Where are you going to go to college? You're going to go to a community college that's, a little bit of money or maybe free, or are you going to jump in and take out a mortgage, or what amounts to be a mortgage? And these are all things we're asking 16 and 17-year-olds to do, and in the most part, asking them to do it without a simple foundation like the one you've been talking about.
Exactly. And that's the thing. I mean, maybe kids are thinking they don't even have a choice. Maybe they're thinking, I don't know what I want to do in college because I don't know what I want to do.
Right.
So maybe it's okay. Is it okay if I actually don't go the route that everybody else is going just because I'm on this educational conveyor belt and that's what I've been told is my next step? Maybe I want to think about that. But if they don't even know that, there are ways that they can critically think about, is this really the path for me? Mm-hmm. And if they determine that it is, great. Mm-hmm. Or maybe I'm not ready for this ever, or maybe I'm not ready for it just right now, because why am I going to commit to something this big and possibly very, very expensive when I have no idea what it's going to do for me or what I want to do with it? Mm-hmm. That seems like, why are we putting the cart before the horse in a way that is going to have a profound effect, financially and just time and I have a real resistance to this conveyor belt system. Mm-hmm. I just do. And I think that, if some young teenagers that are right on the precipice between the what should be kind of the final days of their childhood, so to speak, and now they're moving into adulthood. But so many are moving into it with still, without the tools and the skills and the critical thinking, habit of what am I doing and why am I doing this? Mm-hmm. Really deeply, why am I doing this? Does this feel really right for me right now? I just feel like, and this particular course can really help them sort through that and then make a decision that they feel is right for them at the time.
Yeah.
Because now they've learned some discernment.
Mm-hmm.
They've learned to be a little bit more independent. They've learned that these are choices that they can make. They don't have to be on the conveyor belt. Mm-hmm. They can make choices that they think are best for them, and obviously, still at an age where you are probably talking to your parents, but at least you can feel like you will have a voice.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I one of the neat things that happened with my daughter, she used to come out on these road trips with me when I was performing. She'd be out on the road. Really unbelievable. 16, 17-year-old girl choosing to travel around the country for 3 weeks in a van with their dad. But in those times, we would have these conversations, and I remember her really stressing about college. She was in a beautiful, really beautiful high school, very different, in an international high school. And as she was discerning what she wanted to do for college, she was getting a lot of pressure from her teachers. You have to go to college. You have to get that college experience. Is so important. And as we're traveling around visiting different colleges, and we had a young woman from Italy who was a medical student traveling with us. She was living with us at the time. And we're going to these colleges, and they were showing my daughter the rock wall and the cafe and the washing machines that texted you when the laundry was done. And the Italian student was like, we're not, what's the rock wall have to do with education? We haven't met a professor. We haven't seen a study hall. We haven't seen a lab. And, my daughter I said to her, what, if you had a magic wand, which is appropriate because we're going around doing magic shows. If you had a magic wand, you could wave it. What would your situation be like next year? And she said, well, I want to be working. So I'd like to be out on the road touring with a band, and working with them. I said, well, of all the things and all the choices you've looked at, what's the one choice that will allow you to do that, and get your degree? And she said, well, the Berkeley online program. I didn't say a word, and that's the route she went. It was an incredibly amazing choice for her because it's allowed her to work, pay for college as she went. It was $15,000 a year as opposed to $85,000 a year. And she graduated with no debt, with 4 years experience, and having worked with Katy Perry and Lionel Richie and all these amazing artists. And it was just
phenomenal.
It was. And it was, wasn't me. It was giving her the chance to sit down and weigh. And, and all the things that your class are, options that your classes are giving kids. And most people don't have a chance to travel around the country with their daughter for 3 weeks at a time. Right.
But most people still can create those, those opportunities to sit down and have the same types of discussions. And, what a blessing for you to be able to have that special time with your daughter. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah. We took our kids out of school a lot because my husband traveled for his business. And sometimes in certain phases, there were times where he would need to be gone for a week or 2 weeks at a time. And so we would just pull our kids out of school and go. And I wasn't concerned about it at all because I knew that they would be learning other things and exposed to other things by being with their parents and being in the environment of adults where my husband with his work and seeing how things work that way, learning about the business, learning how to interact with adults. Basic things like how do you introduce yourself? How do you, when somebody says, oh, is this your kids? What do? You shake hands, you look them in the eye, you say, it's nice to meet you. I mean, there's all of these wonderful, necessary, social things that you learn when you're not in school. You don't learn that kind of stuff typically in an average school. You learn it out in the world. Now it's bonkers, Jed. I mean, I just read in a number of different sources like a week ago, these statistics that blew me away. And, a couple that come to mind were some things that employers are noticing now with college students coming for job interviews. And they said, we can't believe how many college students are showing up to a job interview with their parents. I thought I read that wrong, and I didn't. And then I read it from two other sources. Or we noticed this college student, they can't look you in the eye. Mm-hmm. They're socially awkward, or they are so inappropriately dressed when they come in. And it's just like, those were the three I can remember off the top of my head. But the one that blew me away the most was bringing your mommy or daddy with you to a job interview when you are a young adult in college. So yeah, clearly there are some fundamental basic things that nobody taught them in school. And now they are, these young adults, and they're so insecure and inept. They have to, bring their parents with them to a job interview, which pretty well ensures you're not going to get the job. Right? So it's pretty self-sabotaging, but yeah, you have a lot of opportunities to expose your kids to other things that are really necessary for them, these skills and these experiences that are going to really help them move into adult life that they're just not getting now. They are just, again, we're back to, they've learned this conformity and to follow the rules, and which means you're not really thinking for yourself. You don't have the self-confidence and the self-esteem to just go out and do things and, carve your path and meet people and just stand on your own 2 feet. You need a safety blanket, of mommy or daddy, or you're just so timid you can't look somebody in the eye. That is not healthy.
I agree. And I think you and I could talk about 4 hours about this, but this isn't the Joe Rogan experience. This is
right.
Reading with your kids. So we should make sure we tell everybody where they can go, not only to find Common Sense Happiness, but especially to find the Teen Life Coaching Program.
Yeah, so the Teen Life Coaching, we call it TLC for short, the TLC course. It's very easy. So a person can just go to the TLCcourse.com. And they can also just go to my website, LoreeBischoff.com. And there you will find access to my book, to my coaching services. You'll find the TLC course on my website. All of my contact and social media, all of that is there. So it's just LoreeBischoff.com. That's probably like the best one-stop shopping, and everything is available. There's contact there. So anybody that has questions about the course, or anything, happy to talk to them about it and just reach out.
Awesome. We've had a really fascinating time speaking to the author of Common Sense Happiness and the driving force behind the TLC Life Course, Teen Life Coaching Course. Our guest has been Loree Bischoff. Loree, thanks. This has been a blast.
I have so enjoyed it, Jed. And like you, I could have spoken for hours. So hopefully we can do it again sometime. Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Please be sure to connect with us on social media, Facebook.com/ReadingWithYourKids, @ReadingWithYourKids on Instagram and TikTok, and @JedleyMagic on Twitter or X. We would also love it if you could leave us a review on whatever podcast app you are listening to the show on, especially if you are listening to us on Spotify. Of course, we love to welcome you to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we want to start by thanking our amazing guest, Loree Bischoff. Please be sure to visit tlccourse.com. I want to thank my amazing team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Judy Hu, Stella Sheree, Hannah Bosange, Alyssa Montiero, Julia Lipman, Devin Hill, I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every single time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.
This